She was just a clumsy new hire who accidentally sent a sarcastic email to the entire company, but what happened next changed her life forever. Nora Ellis, a young woman with nothing but wit and heart, catches the eye of a mysterious coworker who turns out to be the CEO. And that's only the beginning. Secrets, sabotage, a forged letter, and a decades-old family tragedy all collide in this emotional, high-stakes journey of love, truth, and identity. Where are you watching this from? Drop your country below, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories you won't want to miss. New York pulsed beneath the night sky like a living thing, its skyscrapers glowing like embers in a restless fire. On the 29th floor of Xenith Innovations, the only light still on belonged to the open-plan workspace where Nora Ellis sat hunched over her desk. At 25, Nora was barely a month into her job, still struggling to find her footing in the buzzing tech giant. Her messy brown bun bobbed slightly every time she reached for another page of her notes, and her glasses had long since surrendered to gravity, resting low on her nose. The hum of computers and distant traffic filled the quiet air, a strange lullaby for someone who hadn't slept in nearly 2 days. Stacks of paper towered around her like white cliffs, post-it notes curled at the edges, and empty coffee cups littered her desk like trophies from a caffeine-fueled war. She whispered to herself, editing the same paragraph for the 3rd time, her fingers trembling slightly over the keyboard. Come on, Nora, if you crash now, you're toast. But her body didn't care. Her eyelids drooped, her head dipped forward. With a final groan, she slumped face first onto her keyboard, the soft snore that followed almost comical in its timing. What she didn't notice, couldn't possibly have noticed, was her right hand twitching, dragging the cursor across her screen, hovering over the send button. In her drowsy spasm, she hit it. Within seconds, her private email draft, labeled Midnight Meltdown, zipped off to the company-wide inbox. The message had been written half as a joke, half as a vent to a friend. Dear team, I'm done. This job is eating my soul. My boss is probably a vampire. Send help or coffee. Love, Nora. Across the city, in a sleek glass office overlooking the Hudson River, 32-year-old Evan Reed sat reviewing server diagnostics on his personal laptop. He looked every bit the corporate myth. Tall, composed, sharp-jawed in a tailored navy suit. But behind his cool exterior was a man more comfortable fixing bugs than making small talk. Known as the visionary behind Xenith's meteoric rise, Evan was respected and feared in equal measure. But tonight, he was exhausted and irritable, sifting through server glitches caused by a faulty internal update. That's when he saw it. The subject line, Midnight Meltdown, read at your own risk. Curious, he clicked and read. As he reached the last line, something shifted in his expression. A rare smile curled at the edge of his lips. Vampire boss, huh? He muttered, chuckling under his breath. Whoever Nora Ellis was, she had guts and humor. He pulled up her profile. Just a new junior associate in creative strategy. No red flags, no disciplinary issues. Interesting. Driven by something he couldn't name, Evan stood and walked through the quiet, dimmed halls of Xenith. His shoes barely made a sound on the carpet as he made his way toward her section. He found her there, passed out cold, her cheek pressed to a folder, a pen still tucked between her fingers like a forgotten sword. Her glasses were askew, one shoe missing, and somehow she looked more human than anyone he'd seen in weeks. Vulnerable. Real. As he stepped closer, a small photo slipped from her open bag and fluttered to the floor. He picked it up and froze. It was a faded image of a little girl, Nora, presumably, standing in front of an old brick house with white shutters and ivy-covered walls. Evan's breath caught. The house looked almost identical to the Reed family estate, long since abandoned after a car accident over 2 decades ago that had claimed the life of his younger cousin and sent the family spiraling into grief. Could she be? No. It had to be a coincidence. Still, something gnawed at him. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a sticky note, and scribbled, "Careful where you nap, but thanks for the laugh, ER." He left it on her monitor. Then, without another glance, he slipped the photo into his pocket and returned to his office, eyes wide open for the first time in weeks. There was something about this girl, Nora Ellis, something that pulled at memories and curiosity alike, and he wasn't sure yet whether that made her a mystery or a threat. Morning sunlight spilled through the high-rise windows of Xenith Innovations, casting golden lines across the cluttered desk where Nora Ellis stirred awake. Her neck ached, her cheek had the imprint of a paperclip, and her laptop fan whirred as if mocking her exhaustion. She blinked groggily, her mind still fogged from sleep, until her eyes landed on the yellow sticky note stuck neatly to her monitor. She squinted at the unfamiliar handwriting. "Careful where you nap. But thanks for the laugh. ER." Nora frowned. ER? Her brain scrambled through the mental Rolodex of coworkers but came up blank. "Probably just someone messing with me," she muttered, though her stomach churned as she opened her inbox. Her breath caught in her throat. Sent. The midnight meltdown email wasn't just a dream. It was real. It was sitting right there in her sent folder, time-stamped at 2:46 a.m., and addressed to every employee in the company. Every single one. "Oh no, no, no," she whispered, burying her face in her hands. "I'm so fired." She considered hiding under her desk or faking the flu, but instead, she grabbed a pen and scrawled on the same sticky note, "Appreciate the mercy. Please don't tell the boss." With a nervous smile, she stuck it back on the monitor, hoping humor might save her dignity, if not her job. Across the office floor, Layla Stone, Evan's ever-poised executive assistant, glided through the morning buzz like a shark in silk. With her sleek blonde hair, crisp blazer, and calculated charm, she was the unofficial gatekeeper to the CEO, and she liked it that way. She paused by Nora's desk on her way to the break room, her eyes narrowing at the handwritten notes. She didn't need to guess what ER stood for. She'd seen Evan's handwriting enough times to recognize it instantly. Her gaze shifted to where he stood behind the glass walls of his corner office, seemingly watching Nora with something close to amusement on his otherwise unreadable face. Layla's jaw tightened. Nora Ellis was trouble. She wasn't polished, connected, or impressive. Not in any traditional sense, but somehow she had gotten Evan Reed's attention. That, to Layla, was unacceptable. As if on cue, Evan turned, coffee in hand, and stepped out of his office. Nora was still frantically trying to fix her files, her glasses slipping every time she leaned forward. She didn't notice Evan approaching until he was inches away. He held out a fresh cup of coffee. She blinked at him. "Oh, thanks. You look like you could use it," he said, offering a warm, disarming smile. "No judgment about the email, by the way. I've written worse." Nora blushed furiously. "You're ER?" she asked, half laughing, half dying inside. "Guilty," he replied. "Don't worry, my lips are sealed." She took the cup, her embarrassment fading into something else. Gratitude. "Thanks, coffee guy." As she walked away, Evan chuckled, the sound soft and unfamiliar to his own ears. Nora returned to her desk with a hint of a smile, sipping from the cup and wondering who this mysterious, oddly kind coworker really was. She still hadn't put it together, had no clue that she had just shared a coffee with the CEO of the entire company. But someone else had noticed everything. Layla watched the interaction like a hawk, her nails tapping against her phone screen. She pulled up Nora's employee file and skimmed it with a sneer. No Ivy League, no executive internship, just a bright mind, a modest degree, and way too much optimism. It didn't add up. But Layla wasn't about to underestimate her. Not now. That afternoon, under the guise of team development, Layla handed Nora an assignment that would challenge even a senior associate. A full strategic proposal for Xenith's upcoming product launch, due in 3 days. A task meant to take a week at least. "Think of it as an opportunity," Layla said sweetly, her smile razor-sharp. "You're new, but you seem eager." Nora stared at the document, heart sinking. 3 days? "I'm sure you'll manage," Layla replied before walking off, heels clicking with satisfaction. Nora sat stunned, gripping the edge of her desk. It felt like a setup, but she wasn't going to crumble. Not now. She rolled up her sleeves, tightened her bun, and whispered to herself, "Game on." By the next morning, the office buzzed with quiet chaos, phones ringing, keyboards clacking, coffee brewing nonstop. At her desk, Nora Ellis's fingers flew across her keyboard like sparks. Her deadline loomed, the project proposal from Layla nearly impossible in scope. Most rookies would have cried or quit, but Nora was wired on stubbornness, half a cinnamon bagel, and her 4th cup of office coffee. Her notes were color-coded, spreadsheets layered with logic and chaos alike. Every minute felt like a battle. She didn't notice that she had become a quiet marvel to a few coworkers. the way she mumbled jokes under her breath, or how she twisted her hair tighter every time an idea struck. But her growing confidence didn't go unnoticed by the wrong people either. Layla Stone stood in the copy room, arms folded, watching the printer slowly spit out Nora's draft. She was irritated, not because Nora was failing, but because she wasn't. Somehow, against every trick Layla had laid out, Nora was surviving. More than that, she was actually doing well. "She should be flailing," Layla muttered. "She's too stubborn," said Melanie Brooks, slipping in beside her with a steaming cup of chai and a practiced smirk. "But stubborn girls can break too. You just have to bend them long enough." Layla turned to her, arching a brow. "Then maybe it's time we stopped playing fair." That afternoon, Nora noticed something strange. A section of her data had vanished. Key figures she needed for her market analysis were no longer in the shared drive, and when she asked around, Melanie was quick with a shrug. "Oh, that info's restricted now," she said with a fake pout. "You'll have to request it from legal. Could take days." "But the deadline's in 2, Nora replied, blinking. Melanie smiled and walked away. Nora sat down slowly, the weight of what just happened pressing into her chest like a stone. She wasn't being paranoid, someone was trying to sabotage her, and she had a pretty good idea who. Still, she didn't crack. Instead, she adapted. She stayed through lunch, skipped breaks, and rewrote entire sections of her proposal with alternate datasets, building the project back from scraps. And through it all, little signs of encouragement continued to appear. Another sticky note waited on her desk by late afternoon. "You're handling this like a champ." She chuckled to herself. Coffee Guy had become her invisible cheerleader. She still didn't know who he really was, but his notes arrived just when she needed them most. In return, she scribbled back, "You owe me a donut now." Coffee alone won't cut it. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that Evan Reed, the man in the corner office with the skyline view, read her notes with a growing smile. He hadn't meant to get involved, but every time he passed her desk and saw her pushing through with humor and heart, he found himself wanting to know her more. Not because of the email, not because of the photo still tucked into his drawer, but because she reminded him of something he'd lost. Something real. Later that evening, while heading to grab another coffee, Nora collided, literally, with a tall man in a charcoal suit. Her cup tumbled, but his hand shot out, catching it just in time. "Sorry about that," he said, handing it back to her. His eyes were piercing blue, his smile subtle. "Wow, ninja reflexes," she laughed, brushing her hair behind her ear. "Thanks, that could have been tragic." "No tragedy on my watch," he replied with a twinkle. She noticed his badge read J. Carter. She tilted her head. "Wait, are you JC? As in the sticky notes?" He hesitated for a split second, then nodded. "My lips are sealed." She grinned wide. "Well, thanks for the caffeine therapy, JC. You've been a lifesaver." As she walked away, Evan Reed, aka J. Carter to her, stood rooted, watching her with an amused shake of his head. He didn't correct her assumption about his name. Not yet. Let her believe he was just a middle manager who liked coffee and sticky notes. He wasn't ready to tell her the truth. Not about who he was or the mystery of that photo from her bag. Not yet. Because something about her made him feel hopeful. And he wasn't ready to let that go. The rooftop lounge of Xenith Innovations glittered with champagne and city lights, filled with the smooth hum of industry chatter and polished introductions. Nora stood near the edge of the crowd, tugging at the hem of her simple black dress and trying to look like she belonged. Her hair was in soft waves for once, and her lips wore the faintest sheen of gloss, but it didn't help the nerves churning in her stomach. She'd already spilled soda on someone's patent leather shoes and misheard a tech investor's name as Colonel Mustard, which drew polite laughter and a mortified blush. She was halfway through plotting her escape when a warm voice called out to her. "You remind me of someone." Nora turned to see an older man with kind eyes and silver hair approaching with a glass of water in his hand. He wasn't like the others, no sharp angles or manufactured charm. There was a steadiness to him, something familiar. "Sorry?" she asked. He smiled, handing her the drink. "Someone I knew a long time ago. She had your eyes, your laugh." Nora blinked, unsure how to respond, but something about his voice eased her. "Well, if she had my laugh, she probably tripped over chairs too." The man chuckled. "She did, actually. They talked for 10 minutes about everything and nothing: books, weather, her first impressions of Xenith. She learned his name was Walter Reed, and that he had been part of Xenith since the beginning, now semi-retired but still the soul of the company. "You should come to dinner at our family home sometime," he said suddenly. "You'd fit right in." Nora blinked. "Really?" He nodded. "We'd love to have you." She smiled, touched and slightly confused. "That's incredibly kind." From across the lounge, Layla Stone watched them, her glass clutched a little too tightly. The vision of Walter smiling at Nora lit a fire under her skin. She could see Evan nearby too, watching the scene with that softened look she hadn't seen in him for years. Layla forced herself to breathe, then moved in. Later, she approached Nora in the hallway with a sugary voice and a carefully constructed smile. "Hey there, you're Nora, right?" Nora, still glowing from the conversation with Walter, smiled back. "Yeah, that's me." "I just wanted to say, if you need help with your proposal," Layla said, brushing invisible lint off her blazer, "I'm happy to lend a hand. I've done dozens of them." Nora was surprised but grateful. "That would actually be great, thank you." Layla's eyes glinted. "Of course, anything for a rising star." As Nora returned to her desk, hopeful for the first time in days, Layla turned away with a silent vow. If Walter was interested in that girl, if Evan was looking at her like that, then Nora Ellis had officially crossed into dangerous territory. It was time to speed up the plan. Over the next few days, Layla worked with surgical precision. She whispered doubts about Walter's health to the board, casually mentioned his memory lapses, and laid the foundation for a company in need of fresh leadership. She also made sure that Nora's progress stalled. Rachel, her puppet on the team, began misplacing files, accidentally deleting shared documents, and spreading rumors that Nora was skipping meetings. Meanwhile, Evan couldn't stop thinking about the photo from Nora's bag. The house in the background haunted him. It was too similar to the Reed estate where a child had gone missing 23 years ago after a car accident that tore the family apart. No body had ever been found. Only sorrow remained. But if Nora's photo was real, could there be a connection? He spent late nights combing through old family records, archives, press clippings. No definitive proof yet, but too many coincidences to ignore. And through it all, Nora stayed in his thoughts. Not as a possible heir, but as someone who had challenged him without even trying, who made him want to laugh and feel and hope. Back at her apartment, Nora collapsed onto her couch, the coffee-stained sticky note still in her purse. She read it again. "You're handling this like a champ. ER." Her heart fluttered. Whoever JC was, he made her feel seen. And she needed that now, more than ever. Because deep in the archives of Xenith, Layla had just finished forging a decades-old letter. One that painted herself as the missing Reed heir, and soon she would present it as the truth. The boardroom buzzed with anticipation, the kind that crackled beneath sleek suits and nervous glances. Nora Ellis sat at the far end of the long glass table, her folder clutched tight in her hands, knuckles white. She hadn't slept much, not since she overheard Layla in the hospital hallway, whispering about a forged letter, Walter's collapse, and her plan to seize power at Xenith. The truth was a storm surging just under the surface. Nora had found enough to suspect everything, but not enough to expose it, yet. She scanned the room, her eyes locking briefly with Evan Reed, who gave her the subtlest of nods. His face was calm, but his jaw was tense. He'd spent the night in his grandfather's hospital room, holding Walter's hand, listening as the old man finally confessed the truth. The letter, Walter had said, was real. Written by a family friend after the car accident that shattered the Reeds 2 decades ago. It detailed how a housekeeper had pulled a child from the wreckage, shielding them from the flames. That child hadn't survived, but the woman's own daughter, safe, hidden, had been taken in anonymously by relatives out of fear the tragedy would follow her. Nora. Not a Reed by blood, but raised with the quiet promise of protection. A promise Walter had honored in silence. Evan had found the real letter in a safe inside Walter's study, its ink faded but intact. He read it again and again, the words reshaping everything he thought he knew, and everything he felt. Nora wasn't the heir the media would celebrate. She wasn't a symbol of legacy or wealth. She was something rarer, brave, kind, raw, and his heart knew it long before his mind did. Now across the room, Layla Stone stood poised, the forged letter in her hands like a loaded weapon. "I've called this meeting," she began, her voice smooth as silk, "to present new evidence regarding the Reed estate and the company's succession planning." Board members leaned in. "Walter's health, as many of you know, is declining," she continued, glancing just long enough at Nora to gloat. "But the family's future doesn't need to be uncertain. This letter," she held it up, "proves I am the missing child from the accident 23 years ago. The rightful heir." Gasps rippled through the room. Evan stood. "Before we go further," he said, his voice calm but firm, "there's another letter you should see, the original, unaltered, written by the same family friend, the one Layla tried to hide." He stepped forward, placing the worn document on the table. "This letter explains what really happened and who was involved. Names, dates, events, all verifiable." Nora rose beside him, her heart pounding. "We've also reviewed Layla's emails. The metadata on her letter shows edits made last week. She used the real letter to create a fake narrative, one where she could claim what was never hers." Layla's face froze. "That's a lie." "We've cross-checked timestamps," Evan cut in. "You doctored history, and nearly pushed my grandfather into the grave to do it." The room erupted in murmurs. One board member stood, demanding an internal investigation. Another moved for a vote of no confidence. Layla's mask cracked. Her hands trembled as she tried to argue, to spin, but the tide had already turned. Moments later, the board voted unanimously to remove her from Xenith. Security was called. Layla walked out stiffly, her dreams unraveling behind her in shards. Silence settled. Then someone clapped. Walter Reed entered the room, frail but upright, a soft smile tugging at his lips. "My company is in good hands," he said, looking at Nora. "And so is my legacy." Later that night, as the city glimmered beneath them, Evan found Nora in the break room, still wearing her name badge, still holding the last sticky note he'd written. "You're stronger than you know." She turned when she saw him, eyes shimmering. "So, JC, huh?" He nodded, smiling. "I never meant for it to get that far." "I never meant to send that email," she replied, laughing through the tears. They stepped into the hallway together, the hum of late-night lights wrapping around them. Evan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small ring, delicate, simple, just like her. "I don't care about old bloodlines or boardrooms," he whispered. "I care about the girl who fell asleep on her keyboard and made me believe again." Nora blinked, breath caught. "So?" he asked. "Want to rewrite the ending?" She smiled, eyes wet, heart full. "Only if we do it together." At its core, this story is a powerful reminder that our worth isn't defined by where we come from, but by who we choose to be. Nora Ellis didn't grow up with privilege, connections, or a polished resume. She made mistakes, big ones, but she showed up, owned them, and kept going. She worked with heart, grit, and humor, even when people underestimated her or tried to bring her down. In a world that often rewards perfection and pedigree, Nora's journey proves that authenticity, courage, and persistence matter more. Evan Reed's transformation is just as meaningful. As someone who had built walls to protect himself, he learned that leadership isn't about control. It's about vulnerability, trust, and knowing when to fight for someone else. His decision to stand by Nora, not because of a family name, but because of who she truly is, shows us that love and integrity can cut through legacy and status. And then, there's the lesson of truth. Layla's web of lies might have worked, if not for Nora's resilience and Evan's choice to dig deeper. In the end, the truth always finds a way to rise. It may take time, it may take heartbreak, but it prevails. So remember, your past doesn't define your future. Who you are when no one is watching does. Now we'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? Drop your country in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more emotional, powerful, and inspiring stories just like this one. Your support keeps these stories alive.